Good morning. Let's get started with our State of the University. Did everybody have a good time last night? Yeah. All right, there's a lot of coffee and water here, so please do hydrate after your evenings. So I'm Jennifer Cunningham, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Alumni Relations here at Lehigh. I'm also known as that lady that sends you a lot of emails, so you may recognize my name. And if you have an amazing weekend here, then I'll give my staff all the credit for that, and if you don't, I'll blame the weather, but it looks like we're going to have amazing, amazing sunshine today and tomorrow. So this is our State of the University, where you hear about some of the incredible ways that Lehigh is making a difference in the world. President Helble will talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then you'll have a chance to ask him some questions. I've been at a few of the 15 all-alumni events that he's been doing around the country and the world, and there hasn't been an audience yet that hasn't walked away feeling more energized than ever about Lehigh. Can I also just see, how many of you have been to one of those events? Okay, a few of you, great. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Lehigh's 15th president, Joe Helble. He came to us from Dartmouth College, where he served as provost, and he's a proud, I heard a boo. He's a proud Lehigh alumnus, class of 1982. President Helble.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. You said 20 minutes. I thought I had 60 minutes. Listen faster. Great to have you. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I was a professor for I started my career in the private sector, and then I was a professor for many years before I became a university administrator, and I had a habit, apparently, of speaking really quickly in the classroom and writing even faster on the chalkboard. And I remember one day clearly, it was my first or second year as a professor, a student from the class said, "Could you please talk slower?" And I looked at them and said, "Listen faster. What's your problem?" And I haven't been able to utter that for 30 years, so thank you. So thanks very much, everyone, for being here, and thanks to those who are joining us as well, alumni from around the country and around the world who are with us by live stream. I'd also like to take a moment just to thank all of our volunteers, our reunion committee members, the LUA board, the Young Alumni Council. Could we have a hand for everyone who's donated their time to make all this possible? Thank you. And I'd also like to just ask for acknowledgement of first our incredible staff, and also welcome, if you haven't had the chance to meet her, our new Vice President of Development and Alumni Relations, Carol Packard, waving in the back of the room. Carol and her team not only are responsible for helping make this happen and for bringing the beautiful weather your way this weekend, and throughout the year. Gus is claiming credit. Don't buy it for a second. As I tell prospective students when I run into the tours walking across campus, it's always beautiful in Bethlehem. But I also want to acknowledge our Go Beyond campaign. The Campaign for Future Makers has surpassed $900 million in funding raised towards our $1.25 billion goal. So thank you to alumni here, across the country, and across the world who've helped make that possible. We've also surpassed 50% of our alumni engaging with us in one way or other throughout this campaign. So thank you. So as I said last night briefly when I was meeting with the 50th reunion class, I love this weekend. I love this gathering of alumni, and I didn't truly appreciate how much it would mean to me to have the opportunity to be part of this as president, but also as an alumnus. And I'm reminded on a daily basis as I walk this campus of the things that I've loved for decades, the things that have had such a profound and deep influence on my life. And several of you have commented on those things just in our casual conversation over coffee the past 20 minutes this morning. The green of the campus lawns. Doesn't the campus look absolutely spectacular on a day like today? And the hills. We all remember the hills. Despite what one of you said to me last night, no, the hills have not gotten steeper over the past 40 years. No, we have not moved the buildings farther apart. No, the staircases have not gotten longer. And the academic buildings, of course, Linderland Library, one of the world's 14 most spectacular university libraries, according to Architectural Digest. The university, yeah, thank you, Nancy. Why not applaud for Linderman? The University Center. And the people, always the people, the community that's at our core. And it's a community that continues to surprise me and continues to remind me of how special it was. Just 3 weeks ago at Lehigh's commencement, I was lining up in Lehigh regalia for the processional with the faculty and staff who'd be marching in. Students were lining up separately and getting organized. And a distinguished-looking individual came up to me to say hello. And so he just smiled and said hello, and I reached out my hand and introduced myself. And for a split second, he didn't say a word. And then he smiled at me and said, "I know who you are." And of course, what's running through my mind is, "And help me out." And then he said, "Do you remember me?" And I thought about it for just a split second, and I recognized the voice, that voice. And it all came flooding back. And I just looked at him, my eyes opened wide, and I said, "Professor Salebi." And of course, he is still Professor Salebi to me. And I reminded him of the challenge that his class had posed for me in Transport Phenomena, Chemi 286, 40 years ago, if you're interested. I remember it, and it was one of the first times, even as a junior, that I really had to dig in and work extraordinarily hard to master the material. And he smiled and said, "I remember. Do you remember that I wrote you a letter of recommendation for MIT?" And that conversation just reminded me of the incredible connectedness of this community and the incredible value of the Lehigh Network, both personally and professionally, that we stay connected, that we stay in touch with one another, faculty, staff, friends. And it doesn't matter if it's been 4 months or 40 years since we've seen one another. That bond is deep, that bond is true, that bond is strong. And I'm sure that many of you have memories like that, hopefully not of Chemi 286, but of parts of your Lehigh experience. And for me, it's a real privilege to be here and share and celebrate those Lehigh memories and Lehigh experiences together. And it's also a wonderful opportunity, and for me, a privilege and a pleasure to be able to share with you some of the excitement about where Lehigh is today and where Lehigh is heading. As Jennifer said in the introductory comments when she asked for a show of hands, some of you have heard me speak about Lehigh's trajectory as I've traveled around the country this past year. This is the end of my 3rd year as Lehigh's president, and in those 3 years, as I've been saying, as I've been meeting with alumni groups, we've taken a close, hard, and honest look at our challenges and the challenges facing higher education, been simultaneously reflective and forward-looking, engaging in a detailed strategic planning process that has resulted in a very forward-looking plan for this university, a plan that I shared with alumni at reunion here in this space from this stage this time last year. And this past year, in year 3, we've truly been executing, building what feels to me an incredibly positive trajectory, building momentum. And it's not just me and us stating that. I'm a numbers person. I'm a Lehigh engineering graduate. You can see it in the data. You can see it in the numbers. Take a look at admissions. This is our 2nd year in a row of record applications. This year we were up 11% from the previous year, 35% over 2 years. This past year, 20,396 applications. Our incoming class of 2028 represents 39 states plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, 49 total states represented at Lehigh University. North Dakota, I know some of you are asking, that's the one. We've got some work to do. With apologies to those in North Dakota, hardly anyone lives there, but that's the one state that we're missing, right? We truly are a national university. And in this year's incoming freshman class, 36 countries outside the United States. We truly are international as well. We have our first cohorts of Soaring Together Scholars here on campus. It's a scholarship program that was launched in 2022 to commemorate 50 years of undergraduate coeducation at Lehigh. It's a program that includes full tuition scholarships, experiential learning, and focused, dedicated mentoring of these students. We welcomed our first cohort of Soaring Together Scholars here this past year in the class of 2027, 27 exceptional young people who share a passion for and a commitment to equality, to gender equity. This year, in the 2023 application cycle, 23-24, we had 1,700 applications from students for a very limited number of scholarships and slots. So there is opportunity there, I say to alumni at every stop as I travel around. We're looking to create 50 scholarships through philanthropy. You can help us make this program soar, help us achieve our goal. Last fall, we announced the Lehigh Commitment. It was from a stage I announced this during Founders Weekend events in the middle of Packer Ave. The Lehigh Commitment is all about access to the best and brightest from around the country, regardless of their ability to pay. To cut through the confusion, particularly for students who are first in their families, first gen to go away to college, the Lehigh Commitment says if you come from a family with an annual income of $75,000 a year or less, we will make a 4-year commitment to you that the price you will pay in tuition will be zero. You will receive a full tuition scholarship. And we do that up front because we know, and data and studies have shown, that students, particularly first-generation students who come from lower-income families, tend to under-aspire, undershoot in applying for higher education. We want to say to them, forget the confusion of FAFSA and financial aid forms and federal aid. We will make a commitment to you that if you are qualified, we will support you. Thank you. And that commitment, starting this August, is not just to incoming students in the class of 2028. It extends to current students as well. And when I announced that from the stage in the middle of Packer Ave, when I stepped off the stage and turned to the side, 2 current students came up to me, and one of them said, "Excuse me, President Helble, did I hear you correctly? This is what the Lehigh Commitment is?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "And it applies to current students?" And I said, "Yes." And she had a tear running down her cheek and just said, "Thank you," clasped her hands to her chest and walked away. And for me, that was both incredibly moving and a sign that this is exactly what a university like this can and should do for the best and the brightest, to make a difference in their lives, to make a difference in this country. Lehigh is affordable. Lehigh wants the talent from around the country and around the world. Our yield, by the way, for those students who qualified in our regular decision applicant pool this year was 2 times the yield in our overall pool. And Dan Warner, our Dean and Vice President of Admissions, said he strongly believes that students who had been on the fence about applying to Lehigh applied because of the Lehigh Commitment. And for some who were on the fence about matriculating, this is what made the difference. And I tell you this, I share these stories because student outcomes, something we are deeply committed to, being a national leader in student outcomes, starts with financial aid and scholarships. 54% of Lehigh undergraduate students receive some form of financial aid. Our average award's just over $50,000. Since 2008, over the past 15 years, the percentage of Lehigh students from lower income families, as indicated by Pell Grant status, has increased from 10 to 18% of our student body, and Lehigh is now 20% first generation to college students. So I hope that, regardless of your year, thank you, Gus, regardless of your year, your perspective, your profession, your background, or your life's trajectory, that this makes you proud, that this university is committed to educating talent and doing everything we can to help them succeed. And I will also tell you, both as president and as an alumnus, for me, this is deeply personal. Like so many of you here under this tent, I would not have been here 40 years ago without financial aid. And so I say over and over again as I travel around the country, this is why scholarships and building support for student financial aid is our and is my highest priority. Now, our momentum is not just about admissions, it's about outcomes. In the class of 2023, last year's graduating class, greater than 95% of undergraduate students were employed or pursuing graduate education 6 months after graduation. That timeline is the national marker. Our knowledge rate, meaning the percentage of the class for whom we have actual data, is above 90%. And that combination of placement and knowledge rate is easily within the top 5. I'm sorry, well, actually it may be in the top 5. I'm sure it's within the top 10 in the country. 97% of our undergraduates reported that they were equipped with career-ready skills thanks to Lehigh. And so for all of you who have not found a way to get engaged, potentially give back of your time and mentor, I encourage you to take a look online at Lehigh Connects. It's a mentorship and connection platform that helps collect alumni, but it also helps connect you with our students and help them draw on the incredible wisdom of the experiences that you've built up over a lifetime of professional success. We've also seen momentum in the area of recognition. I've spoken in the past of the Georgetown University Center for Education in the Workforce 2022 study on return on investment for higher education. 4,500 institutions across the country were measured for ROI, 10-year to 40-year data points. Lehigh is consistently in the top 25. That's wonderful. Hardly anyone has heard about it. In 2023, a slightly higher profile publication, the Wall Street Journal, chose to also evaluate and rank colleges and universities based on essentially return on investment, based on outcomes. Is there anyone here who has not seen what the Wall Street Journal said about Lehigh? Number 14 in the country, right? Something to be proud of. On one of my morning runs, a few days afterwards, one of the students turned to me and said, President Helble, how do you feel about the Wall Street Journal saying we're the 14th best university in the country? I said, it's about time, actually. And I said that both kiddingly but also truly. We all have known that this university has delivered extraordinary outcomes. How nice to see a publication with that level of prominence recognize it. In terms of momentum, our strategic plan is making progress, inspiring the future makers. My State of the Union comments here, State of the University comments here, a year ago, as I said earlier, marked the introduction of the strategic plan to the alumni community. And I promised you and promised the Lehigh community that this would not be an idle blueprint, that we would put the plan into action, and we have in fact spent the past year doing exactly that. We are making research investment and have established a Center for Catastrophe Modeling and Resilience. It has been launched, it is gaining momentum, it is already achieving, accelerating external funding. Work's continuing on expanding this center. I'm happy to talk about the specifics of what it is in the Q&A, and we're also moving towards investment for 2 other integrated interdisciplinary research centers over the course of the fall. From the National Science Foundation, we received a $6 million Accelerating Research Translation, or ART, grant to increase the translation of scientific discoveries by researchers, our faculty and students and staff, into prototypes, programs, products, processes that will benefit society. And university-wide research funding continues to increase. After being flat for a decade, we have seen a 45% increase over the past 4 years. Talented faculty, including new hires, scholars and teachers and research staff across this university, making a difference, tackling challenging research problems and engaging students in their work. We've made progress in the area of educational innovation. I've spoken often of our desire to be deeply, even radically interdisciplinary. And here again, I'll be happy to speak more about this in the question and answer, but I've argued and articulated the need for every student who comes through Lehigh to graduate with some basic understanding of technology, regardless of their major, and of the world of business, in addition to having a basic understanding of the arts and humanities. That's the direction we're heading, building additional... You are a receptive audience, thank you. But I think it's hugely important, and it is what our students need to be prepared to engage in the world. It is what they need to be able to lead lives of contribution, meaning, and value. It is what they need to make a difference in their companies and their communities. And so how are we doing that pragmatically? We're increasing the size of our existing inter-college programs. We are introducing new ones, and in fact, just a month ago, we introduced and announced the creation of a new integrated degree in business and health, an IBH program, to complement our integrated degree in business and engineering and computer science and business, and the IDEAS program, the integrated degree in engineering and arts and sciences that already exist and have been extraordinarily successful. We have a working group building an exploratory first semester so that when that's completed, students can come to Lehigh without having to designate a college. We'll get a core curriculum that exposes them to the arts and sciences and to engineering and to business, and then we'll be able to branch out from that into any direction. And we have, even within our College of Engineering, our Dean, Steve DeWorth, is here in the back, a group that's working to revise their first-year program with an eye on making it more student-centered, project-based, to transform the first-year experience for both engineering and non-engineering students alike. And we are even taking steps to take a different look at PhD education. Yes, PhD education. There is a national need for change in the structure of the educational component of the PhD. This is an opportunity for Lehigh. This is an opportunity for Lehigh to lead. We're making exciting progress in our new College of Health. How many of you have visited the new HST building? It is spectacular, isn't it? Transparent, dynamic, shared science and labs. Even more exciting are the people and programs, and it is, among other departments and programs, home to our new College of Health. A few weeks ago, I congratulated 42 students who were receiving bachelor's degrees in the first four-year class to complete the program in one of two College of Health majors, the first class to graduate. This fall, we'll welcome 90 students who can choose from 4 programs, including a new one in biostatistics and health data science. So the College of Health continues to expand and grow as plans. We're taking steps to expand our support for entrepreneurship, creativity, and innovation, both our programs in Silicon Valley and our programs here on campus. I am keenly aware and have been saying to the local community that in a Lehigh Valley population basin of approaching 1 million people, here's a question for you. How many research universities exist in the Lehigh Valley population 1 million? Right? 1. You may keep your Lehigh degrees. That is the correct answer, right? 1. That is an opportunity for us to be contributing very directly and intentionally as a driver for economic growth right here in the Lehigh Valley. And we're investing in reimagining and advancing our facilities. First and foremost, the Clayton University Center at Packer Hall. The official opening will be next summer, summer of 2025, so come back for reunion, even if it's an off year next year, to see the inside. Hopefully you've had a chance to see the renderings of what it will look like. I overheard one couple, I won't call you out, but as I was walking down here a half an hour ago, mentioned that they had read about the secret room that was discovered while we were undergoing the demolition and renovation. That is true. There is a lot to be discovered, so I hope you've taken the time to read about it, and we'll come back and see it next year. This renovated historic building in the heart of campus will be the centerpiece of our residential student-centered education. Collaborative spaces for work and for fun, modern dining options, a pub restaurant, and even a fire pit and an Amazon grab-and-go store. It is going to be very different than the UC we all experience as students, but I think it's tremendously exciting, and it will be a gathering place at the core of the campus, a place where students can help bond with one another, meet with faculty and staff, and work in programs to develop their leadership skills and feel right at home. And by the way, all of you are welcome to support it. We are still actively seeking funding. Feel free to include your name as a supporter of our university home. On Mountaintop, wow, no applause for that. We have to work on that. On Mountaintop, part of our strategic plan, what an opportunity it provides. We are planning to fully activate the 740-acre Mountaintop campus and transform it. It is a place for big and loud and messy, large-scale work, the kind of thing you cannot do on most university campuses. We have large-scale testing in our Atlas Structural Center in the IMT building to do large-scale work that's almost impossible to do anywhere else. Our Art, Architecture, and Design department is taking advantage of the 3D high bays in Building C, doing incredible things there. We've got a drone lab, and our biology department is at home in Iacocca Hall. What else can we imagine to use this spectacular facility? So we are looking at programs and opportunities on the academic and research side. We are exploring plans to build graduate housing. And even as we plan these, undergoing a campus master planning effort to provide the foundation for our land and facility use choices for decades to come and to help us think even more intentionally about connectivity, not 3 campuses, but 3 different parts of a single university campus. And momentum we're also seeing through our strategic plan as we take steps to enhance all that we do to support what we refer to as a Lehigh for everyone, a shared Bethlehem community and experience, and a lifelong Lehigh experience. So let me end with just a few words on what those specifically mean. The shared Bethlehem experience. I know some of you have not been here in many years, and I would encourage you to see how much has changed in the Bethlehem and in the South Bethlehem community. We currently have more than 150 local Lehigh community partnerships and programs with the city government, with the school district, a deep partnership with Broggle Middle School. Any day of the week, you can go down there and you will see Lehigh students engaging, working with teachers and working with the staff and working with the students and working with a full range of community organizations in Bethlehem and South Bethlehem. Lifelong Lehigh, we are looking to deepen and expand our alumni connections, provide lifelong learning opportunities for our current students, for alumni, and also members of the local community, so they and we can help you stay ahead of your needs to engage with the evolving world and continue to excel in your professions. We're building an infrastructure to add just-in-time skills and training opportunities, certificates and other programs, micro and mini credentials, in addition to providing broad opportunities for continued intellectual engagement. It's been happening organically at Lehigh. We are beginning to take steps to give it structure and coherence. And Lehigh for everyone, our sense of community. It's long been central to the Lehigh experience. Those bonds we share and develop with one another, those bonds we develop and share with faculty and staff. A few months ago, I had Michael Smerconish, some of you may know him, CNN and SiriusXM commentator, Lehigh alumnus from the early 80s, back on campus to meet with students and share his experience. And he's spoken very publicly about Professor David Amadon, the single urban studies professor at that time, and the intellectual awakening, thank you, that Professor Amadon encouraged and made possible. And Michael gives him credit for Michael exploring and undertaking the life and the career he's undertaken. I shared with you my story about Professor Salebi, whom I had had no contact with for 40 years, and then in ways good and bad, it brought me right back to Chem E 286 when I was about to march in for commencement, right? Those stories remind us and remind me of how important these connections are. And at this challenging moment for the world, in this very challenging year for higher education, this notion of a Lehigh for everyone and the notion of the importance of those connections reminds me how important it is that we be attentive, intentionally attentive, to providing an environment that supports all of our students, while at the same time provides space for difficult, even uncomfortable conversation. Over the past 18 months, Lehigh's engaged with Hillel International's Campus Climate Initiative and the Louis Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law to review our policies and practices with regard to providing a supportive environment for our Jewish student community. Recommendations were received this spring, and we are taking the time this summer to look at those and make steps and decisions regarding implementation. Just a few weeks ago, we announced a new director of Muslim student life, Tariq Amir, who has joined us and, in fact, will be part of the Lehigh community starting this summer and fall. This past semester, I charged a committee of faculty, staff, and students to examine our free expression policies and consider whether we should explicitly adopt the so-called Chicago principles for free expression, not to change the way we operate, but to make it abundantly and explicitly clear that we stand for a difficult but respectful, free and open debate and discourse. And we've refrained, and I have refrained, from making institutional statements on world events. And this isn't new. This is the approach I've followed throughout my time at Lehigh. And for me, as I've discussed with our board on several occasions, it's a matter of principle. I won't pretend to speak for all of higher education, but I firmly believe that this is right for Lehigh. Our objective needs to be, my objective is, providing the environment for our students to engage, to explore, and to learn, to engage in respectful discussion and debate. Yes, on questions relating to Israel and Palestine, but yes, on so much more. We took one step this year. We began the Compelling Perspective series. I hope some of you are able to attend those discussions this next year. Our theme this first year was national security, and our goal is to bring to campus perspectives that are not from the extremes, but are different. Our approach is to have a student leader group meet in a classroom setting in a discussion with the speaker led by the provost, and then I engage in conversation with the speaker from the stage in Baker Auditorium, and then it is open to Q&A to the entire audience. Our two speakers this year, the first was Theresa May, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, former head of the Conservative Party in the UK, and then in the spring, Leon Panetta, former Secretary of Defense, Presidential Chief of Staff, and CIA Director. And the conversation was engaging. The questions that were asked from the audience by the students were direct and pointed and respectful. When I was describing the event to another president at a gathering of presidents a few weeks later, he looked at me and when I described the open Q&A, said, "That was brave." And I looked at him, I smiled and said, "And isn't that exactly what we should be doing, right? To try to model respectful discourse and to take a chance." Thank you. To trust our students, to trust the Lehigh community, and to engage them in this conversation. So let me end there by saying thank you again. I hope this gives you a small sense of Lehigh today, how much it has changed even in the past year, and yet at the same time, how much we have remained true to our history, our heritage, and our core values. And I hope it gives you a sense of why we are proud of who we are and why I feel so privileged and honored to be able to serve as Lehigh's 15th president. Thank you for coming back for reunion. Please engage with your friends and community members. Stay involved, be supportive where you can, and share the excitement and pride. Thank you. I'm happy to, since I had threatened to speak for an hour, and apparently I didn't. I've left time for Q&A, so if you have a few questions, I'm happy to take them and also happy to engage with you afterwards. So thank you. We have a hand up and a microphone. John, first question to you. Please, if you don't mind my asking, since not everyone knows one another, introduce yourself and your affiliation.
Okay. It's great to be here. I'm John Lynch, class of '84. We overlap by 2 years, mechanical engineer. 6 years after Lehigh, my life turned in quite a different direction. I ended up in Poland. Mm-hmm. And I've been living in Poland as an entrepreneur, engineer, and business person for 34 years. My son just started at Lehigh in September, so he's just finished his freshman year, so bravo, class of 27.
I think that's worthy of applause. Congratulations.
Yes. I said to my son, I was one of the North Jersey kids at Lehigh. There were a lot of us. Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. My son was born in Poland. He's going to be probably going back to Europe, maybe helping with the reconstruction of Ukraine. And when he meets people and says, I studied at Lehigh, he's going to get some blank faces.
Yes.
So I think that, first of all, good luck with North Dakota. We'll see if we can help with that. But I think, and I'd love to even help, in this vision of Lehigh for the future, international recognition, especially in Europe, but not only, because my son has friends in South America, Africa, Middle East, all over the place. So I think Lehigh is making great progress, but I think somewhere in that strategy has to be a very conscious effort to boost the Lehigh name internationally, because I think that's something that will go hand in hand with the strategy.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you. And frankly, we need to start with our Lehigh community around the world. I was in London as Lehigh president for the first time in March of this year, getting the alumni community together, and this is a significant part of the conversation we were having. How do we have more of a presence, both physically and also virtually, in those communities? How do we do a better job of recruiting students and connecting with employers in those communities? And how do we make sure our alumni, who are our best ambassadors, our best brand ambassadors, are aware at a high level of 3 key messages and what it is that we're very excited by? Wall Street Journal number 14, that's a good place to start. National leader in student outcomes, one of the best ROI in the country, and radically interdisciplinary with technology at our core. That's a different message than most universities around the world are going to give, and I hope it will help us be differentiated in the marketplace. So thank you. And by the way, 8% of our undergraduate student body, if I didn't say this earlier, is international right now. A sea change compared to when I was here as a student. So thank you. Over here, Ken?
Great. Thank you. Terrific presentation. Ken Wash, class of 1974, Economics and International Relations. When you get together with the presidents of other universities, you must be facing the twin pressures of current needs, you know, for construction, for scholarships and everything, and also the need for building on the endowment. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate that difference in terms, let's say that you were president of this university for, let's say, another decade. Mm-hmm.
That's all?
Oh, 20 days. Sorry, I didn't mean to limit it. But it's, take me out 10 years, 15 years. You know, there's always the pressure on university presidents to spend to spend down when you've been successful, as you have been, in building the endowment. But on the other hand, you know, you don't know what's around, you know, the future, and building an endowment's important. How do you balance that?
Right, so balance is the key, right? And so we are focusing on essentially three important priorities for fundraising. So one is current use funding for buildings principally. Also the Lehigh Fund, which does help support financial aid, but current use for buildings. And so I said tongue-in-cheek, but also seriously, we're continuing to raise funding to support the renovation of the incredibly beautiful and historic Clayton University Center. But financial aid, when I spoke of the different scholarship programs, that is adding money to the endowment. And so we raise money for the endowment, we invest it, and then the returns annually fund scholarship in perpetuity. We spend far more money in financial aid right now than we generate from the endowment. And so for Lehigh's long-term ability to attract the best and brightest from around the world, building and around the country, building the endowment specifically for financial aid is, as I said, among our highest priorities. And this is something that, to differing degrees, this is the balance that all university presidents try to strike or need to strike. If you're the head of a public university, there's another factor in the equation, and that's state funding. But in some parts of the country, that's so unpredictable and unstable right now that they are having to take the same approach that we take. So I'm happy to talk about it in more detail afterwards, but thanks, Ken, for the question. Barry?
Barry Glickman, 1979. You know, you've mentioned all the strides that we've made academically and in the press and the media, but you've also mentioned something as significant as the transformation of the UC. For many of us who were here, you know, during the 32 national fraternities on campus, Greek life, you know, really was responsible for the social life. What do you see the transformation of the UC doing for social life, and will there be a central hub? You mentioned that there's going to be a pub, but obviously that doesn't include a certain percentage of the student population.
Well, it does. You're just a little bit more limited in what you can order from the menu. And so I say that kiddingly, but also seriously. The idea is that a family could dine there, a faculty member could take a group of students after class or for lunch, and a group of students can still get together there and eat, drink, but not be served alcohol until they're seniors. That is absolutely correct. And so with regard to Greek life, it is, of course, different than it was 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. The world has changed and also the laws have changed. It's still very much a vibrant presence here at Lehigh. The number of Greek houses is smaller, but it's about a third of our student community who are active members of Greek organizations. When I was a student, I will say it was closer to 60 to 70%, and it felt then as if one chose not to be part of Greek life. One felt as if you didn't have a social life. Now it's a vibrant option if you choose it, and if you choose not to, there is a lot of other activity happening. The Lehigh After Dark series of events, I mean, things like, I've watched my own children experience this as they've moved through their teens and 20s. Board games and bingo with wings, and things like that on different campuses are extraordinarily popular in gathering places, as well as Greek life and other elements of social life that after you're 21, of course, may involve alcohol. I think the idea and the hope is that the UC, the expectation, will be a gathering place for structured student activities that are taking place in various locations around campus. Right now, we'll be able to bring them all together. There's going to be a game room. There's going to be pool tables, large screen TV, those kinds of things. And so it will be a gathering place, but there's also not an expectation that everything that happens on campus will happen in that one building. So I don't know if that answers your question, Barry. I'll say that social life on campus has evolved, but remains, from everything I've seen, more diverse in terms of experience and opportunity, but pretty vibrant. So students still talk about having very active social lives in addition to being really challenged academically, and I love hearing that combination. So thank you. Questions? I'm sorry, I have to turn to the right. We have a few questions over here.
Joe, Bob Kirchberger, 69 Management Science. About 7 or 8 or maybe 10 years ago, the plan was to tear down the Tremblay apartments,
Yes.
dorms, whatever, and build additional new dorms there. Is that still part of the future plans? I recognize that they've been used kind of as a COVID parking spot for isolation students when they're ill. What's going on?
Yeah, so that's a good question. You are correct that there were plans about 7 or 8 years ago to take down Tremblay and build new residential housing. Those plans were put on hold when I arrived while we focused on some other things, including building our applicant pool, taking the steps that have led us to where we are today. As our student body grows, so there had been a plan to grow to approximately 6,000 students, and we slowed that growth when I arrived, but we didn't stop growth towards that aspirational goal. As we get closer, within a few years, we are going to need to think about new residential housing for undergraduate students. We are rethinking whether or not taking Tremblay down is the right direction to head. It needs renovation if we keep it. It needs work. It's now being used as active housing again, and it is the only apartment-style housing that's in the middle of campus. And while it may not be the most externally, aesthetically pleasing to some architecture on campus, the central location and the style of living is something that students who live there have told me they quite favor. And so, to be determined, right? I'm not avoiding the question. The true answer today is we don't know, right? But within a few years, we will. So thank you. There's another question back here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, my name's Edmund Peterson. I'm a mechanical engineer. In Wikipedia, you'll see a list of the American Association of Universities. I forget the exact order there.
Yes.
Carnegie Tech, Case Tech. That's what they were when I came here in 1965. They are in it, and Lehigh is not. They have about 35 universities in the public sector and another 35, including the Ivy League and these other schools. Why are we not in it? I don't understand that at all.
Yep. So thank you. So AAU is the Association of American Universities, and it's a group, I don't want to call it a club, but that's effectively what it is, of 65 roughly, I don't have that number exactly right, of the largest research universities from around the country, with a few foreign affiliates as members. And so size matters tremendously there. It is quality of the work that you do, but it's also size. You need to be above a certain threshold in research volume, externally funded research volume, a certain threshold in terms of number of PhDs. And then there are subjective impact measures. And so, yes, Carnegie Mellon University is now a member. Most of the institutions that have medical schools. The institutions that are about our size that are members either have medical schools or they've been there from the beginning when the association was founded in the 20s or 30s. And so it's not as though that's something we have a choice in or any say in. And in terms of our research size and the balance between our graduate and undergraduate programs, we don't have the metrics that are consistent with AAU membership. Having said that, that does not mean that we have any less of an aspiration to research excellence. This is why we are investing in 3 integrated interdisciplinary centers of research. Our investment in talented new faculty is why our research funding has gone up 45% over the past 4 years. And so our measures for our size, I want them to be focused on impact. I want us to be doing research that makes a difference in the world. And it may never get to the volume that has us eligible for AAU membership, but we are right on the cusp between Carnegie Foundation, Research 1 and Research 2, R1 and R2 classification, and that's something that is potentially within sight. And so that's a more realistic aspiration for us as a university. Thank you. All right, Jennifer says I can take, I'm going to take 2 more questions, if I may, Jennifer, one from this side and one from this side. So, but I will let you and the microphone holders decide who get the last 2 questions.
Hey, hold on here. I'm Bill Beatty, class of 59. I will say no more. That's great. While I was here in my 4 years, football was one of the things I did. Going to a football game at Lehigh these days is kind of depressing. It's not only a matter of winning or losing, but drawing fans over to the stands. Is there anything being done by the university to attract people to watch football instead of just doing what they do right now?
So, talk to Gus about signing up for one of his tailgates. And so, I mean, this is seriously, this is a trend that one is seeing not just at Lehigh, but at colleges and universities around the country. Attendance at sporting events, live in-person attendance, is down substantially. Not at the huge football schools, right? At the SEC is the example people often point to, or the Michigans and Ohio States and Penn States of the world, right? It is different. But at universities of our size and scale, this is the case. It's certainly true across the Ivy League. I had this same conversation with alumni when I was at that other university that several of you booed when it was mentioned, when Jennifer was introducing me. One of the things that I'm encouraged to see, and it's been slow in returning from the pandemic, but this year, if you came to the Lehigh Lafayette game, not Lee-Loft, by the way, for any young alumni who are here in the room, pronounce all 5 syllables, please. But Lehigh Lafayette is as vibrant as I remember it being when I was a student. So what steps are we taking? I mean, the sports teams encourage one another. The football coach even came for a Pace the Prez Tuesday morning run to try and encourage the runners who were there, the students who were joining me to get engaged and support the team. We are very visibly and actively promoting and supporting our athletic opportunities. We have got great competitive teams, but you can see everything streamed on your phone now, and that makes it harder to get students actually in the stands, except for Lafayette. Last thing I'll say on this, because I do think there's just an interesting, it's an interesting moment for collegiate athletics, and it's a much broader challenge than getting students in the stand. Is if you pay attention to the national landscape, you're seeing the increasing professionalization, blatant professionalization of intercollegiate athletics. I mean, even a year ago, the words pay to play were whispered. Now people at the big-time schools are speaking openly about budgets they need to pay to players, million-dollar recruits. The Patriot League, like the Ivy League, is deeply committed to the notion of student athlete, scholar athlete, and what athletics does to promote to promote their learning and success. And so there's a broader question and challenge that we're facing here, and this is what the Patriot League presidents and athletic directors were speaking about at West Point the beginning of this week. How do we preserve our values and continue to present to families the true special opportunity that competing in football and athletics in the Patriot League provides, and what it means for their long-term success in this moment where the NCAA is falling apart around us? Anyone who has any thoughts on a solution to that problem, other than the answer that's often given is Congress needs to act, and I worry when that's the solution that's put forward, it's a challenging moment. So thank you. One last question over here. Sorry, Gus.
I'm happy to be the last questioner. My name is Len Steinmark. I graduated in 1954. I happened to get a BS in mechanical engineering plus a BA in liberal arts.
All right.
Now, I have a serious question, but before that, since the last conversation has been about football and Lafayette, when I was here as a freshman in 1950, Lehigh had its first undefeated season, and for many years, I had a piece of the Lafayette goalpost on my dresser for many, many years. My more serious question is what you had addressed earlier about we have Islamic students and Palestinian students and Jewish students. Just a couple of years ago, moved down from New Jersey to Florida, and when all this encampment business was going on the news, I was very happy to read that Lehigh was not mentioned at all. And I'm very curious, sir, how have you managed and what is your plan to keep that dialogue respectful and not have encampments?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And so I'm going to give tremendous credit to our student community, our student leaders, and our staff and faculty leaders for modeling and encouraging respectful engagement. And I've been speaking about this throughout the year, even prior to October 7th. In my remarks to students at freshman convocation, I spoke about the importance of respectful engagement. It's what I spoke about in my commencement remarks to students a few weeks ago. I've personally hosted the leaders of our Jewish student community, the campus rabbi, and our student affairs staff, including Henry Odie, who's here from our Office of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion, and then did something similar with the leaders of our Muslim and Middle Eastern student communities and the leaders of our student activist community to have conversation about what's on their minds, what they would like to know from the broader community, and what they'd like the broader community to hear from them. This is something we're talking about this summer, what we might do to do this in an ongoing and continuing way this next year. I offer no promises and guarantees. This is a challenging moment for higher education. It's a challenging moment for the world. But I think it is absolutely absolutely essential that we intentionally speak about our values and ask our students. I mean, one of the things I say often, and something I learned from my parents in my youth, is listen first. And that's what I've been trying to say to everyone very directly. Listen first. Before you speak, think about how you would like to hear the other perspective presented to you. And our students, to their credit, have said to me, including the leaders of our student activist group, right, in the midst of talking about what's happening on other campuses, said to me, we'd like Lehigh to be different. Right? And so I can offer no guarantees, but I'm deeply respectful of and appreciative of our students, and let's hope it continues. So thank you for the question. Thank you all for being here. And thanks for staying so connected to Lehigh.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other members of the class of 1954 here? Raise your hand. That's amazing. Fantastic. I did want to echo what President Helble said about supporting. If you heard anything really exciting that you'd like to support, we would love your financial resources towards that. I'd also like to pile on to that and say if you have ideas or you want to donate your talent, come see me. I manage about 2,000 volunteers here at Lehigh. We can always use more. And if you don't want to volunteer in a specific role, be an ambassador. Take what you heard today, take it out to your friends and family members who aren't here. When you're at events, talk about Lehigh and what you've learned. That is a huge role for our alumni community. So I just also wanted to mention a few events that I hope I'll see you at. The Parade of Classes is in a couple hours here. We've got the Party on the Hill, and yes, there is transportation to take you up there. Class dinners, of course. There's a Pace the Prez. For those of you not familiar, President Helble runs just about every day and invites alumni to come with him. At 8 a.m., we're going to start. He does 4 miles and kind of goes up and around. I am so graciously volunteering to do 2 miles in a walk. So if you would like to join us at 8 a.m. at the flagpole tomorrow, we'll take a little more leisurely pace. I also want you to put on your calendars Saturday, June 9th, 2029. We will be here again at your next reunion, so put that on the calendar. And that's it. I just wanted to thank you again for coming and enjoy the rest of your weekend.